I was just a girl when it all happened, no more than 11 years old. My name is Ama, and I grew up in the heart of Nkinkim, a bustling village nestled between rolling hills and the great river that fed our land. Life in the village followed a rhythm as steady as the pounding of fufu in wooden mortars, the morning rush to the farms, the midday heat that sent people seeking shade, and the evening laughter as families gathered around flickering lanterns. But beneath this rhythm, secrets whispered through the market like the wind rustling the palm fronds. Every 5 days, on market day, the village square transformed. Traders arrived from neighboring settlements with woven baskets filled with yam, plantain, smoked fish, and colorful fabrics. The air carried the scent of roasting groundnuts and fresh shea butter. I loved market days, not just for the treats my mother sometimes bought me, but because I enjoyed watching the women barter, laugh, and exchange stories. It was here, among the chattering women and the clinking of cowrie shells, that I first heard the whispers. At first, they were just murmurs, half sentences spoken in hushed tones, eyes darting left and right before tongues stilled. A shame. Such a young girl. One woman muttered while arranging her tomatoes. Another, shaking her head as she poured palm oil into a customer's bottle, sighed. We cannot talk about such things here. My ears perked up. What were they hiding? I was a curious child, always eavesdropping on adult conversations, but this time something about their hushed voices unsettled me. I turned to my mother, who was negotiating the price of dried okra with an old trader. Ma, what are they talking about? I asked, tugging at her wrapper. She clicked her tongue and waved me away. Go and fetch more firewood when we get home. Children should not concern themselves with such matters. But I could not let it go. That evening, as I pounded cassava with my older cousin Efua, I decided to ask her. She was 16, almost a woman. I knew more about village matters than I did. Efua, do you know what the women were whispering about at the market today? She hesitated, her hands pausing mid-motion in the mortar. It's not for children, Amma. Eat your food and sleep. The way she said it sent a chill down my spine. Then, one night, I found out it was late, and I had woken up to the distant sound of drums. At first, I thought it was the spirits of the ancestors dancing in the forest, but then I heard footsteps, hurried, desperate. I peeked through the small wooden window of our hut and saw a girl running. She was barefoot, her wrapper half undone, her breath coming in short gasps. Behind her, a shadowy figure pursued. My heart pounded. She reached Auntie Ajo's house, the woman who sold groundnuts in the market. The girl banged on the door, her cries raw with terror. Mama, please, let me in, she sobbed. One day, I gathered enough courage to speak at the market square, the same place where whispers had once passed. I stood tall, my voice rising above the murmurs. Our daughters deserve better. Our sisters deserve protection. It is time we listen, not in hushed tones, but with action. Some turned away, unwilling to face the truth, but others, young girls, mothers, even some fathers, listened. And slowly, the silence in our village began to break. Abena never returned to the village, but the story stayed with me. She was the reason I fought, the reason I refused to be quiet, because every girl in every village deserved a life free from fear. And so the whispers in the market turned into voices, and those voices turned into change. The door creaked open, and she disappeared inside just as the figure reached the compound. The person stopped and then turned back into the darkness. The next morning, the village was restless. Everyone spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting toward Auntie Adjo's house. I overheard my father talking to a neighbor. It is bad enough that this has happened to a girl so young, but now that she has spoken, what will happen next? Spoken? About what? I couldn't stay silent anymore. That evening, while my mother and I shelled groundnuts, I asked again, Ma, who was that girl last night? What happened to her? My mother sighed heavily. Her name is Abina. She's barely 14. The man she ran from, he is someone powerful, someone who thinks he can take what he wants without consequences. I swallowed. But she ran away. She told people, right? Won't they help her? Ma shook her head. Some will, but others will say it is not their concern. That is how it has always been. The world does not favor the voices of girls, Amma. Her words burned in my chest. I couldn't accept that. If people knew, if they truly listened, surely they would help, wouldn't they? The next market day, I watched as Abina walked through the square, her eyes cast downward, her mother's protective arm around her shoulders. The whispers followed her like a shadow. But something inside me had changed. I no longer wanted to just listen to the whispers. I wanted to be the voice that shouted. That was the day I decided I would not be silent. Years later, when I grew up and became a woman, I remember that moment. I remember the fear in Abina's eyes, the way the village murmured but did nothing. And I knew that I had to be different. I would tell the stories that no one wanted to hear because sometimes the truth needed more than whispers. It needed a voice that would not be ignored. As I got older, I sought out the women who had once been silenced. I listened to their stories, their pain, their resilience. I learned from them, understanding that silence was the tool of oppression and that words, bold, unflinching words, could break chains.